Hello everyone, my name's Laura Williams from Organised Well and I'm a professional organiser and declutterer. I help people to remove the possessions that they no longer need to create calm space and become better organised so that they can become happier and more productive at home. And I'm here to talk about how you can create systems to keep your business records organised. I'm not a data security expert, so I will mention things to do with data security, but I'm not going to point out an exhaustive list of things that you need to do, and I'm by no means giving you advice. So if you're unsure of anything, please do speak to a data security expert. So paperwork and electronic systems. The first thing I would suggest if you're looking to revamp your systems or you're looking to set something up new is that you define your plan of action. So we're going to define the documents that you need to use in your business. We need to think about the documents, the information that you're keeping perhaps about clients. You will have defined in your privacy policy anything that you will be keeping that's to do with people. And you'll have defined how you're going to do that to keep it secure and safe. The other thing to think about is what evidence do you need to keep for your business? That might be for tax purposes, it may be for insurance, there may be other things other bits of information or documentation that you need to keep for evidence. So we need to think about that. The other thing to think about is what other documents do you need in your business? So they might be policies, they may be procedures and processes that you've defined, it could be terms and conditions, contracts. There could be many, many different documents that you really need to keep. So you need to define what they are and get really clear on what that is, because we don't just want to keep everything. You don't have space, so you don't have storage capacity for everything. So get really clear on those three things first. The second thing we're going to do is to design the system that you're going to use. And you really, I would recommend that you do this before jumping in and creating your system, because you want to think about what is going to work for you. And there'll be some trial and error in here. But if you can think about, one, the way that you need to operate in your business. So for example, the way that you keep records is going to be different if you work in an office environment compared with if you're perhaps out in a vehicle, out on the road visiting people all the time. Also, you might want to think about your preferences. Are you a tech whiz? Do you love tools and technology? Can you use your mobile phone when you're out and about? Is that comfortable for you? Or actually, do you prefer to work with paper? What are you prepared to learn? There are many tools and things out there that you perhaps haven't used before. So what are you prepared to learn to make your life easier? Designing your system will not only make it easier to set up, and it means that you just put some preparation into it, but also it means that you can also think about how other people will be able to support your business if you weren't available. If you can set up a system that's straightforward, that makes it really easy to find records or to store things, then someone else can easily take over and support you when you're not available in your business. So I want you to give consideration also to the documents that you need to keep and whether they need to be locked away and kept secure, or whether they can be stored just anywhere in an office. That's really important. As I mentioned earlier, we need to think about data privacy. There may be documents about information about clients that need to be locked away and not accessible to even anybody who perhaps may be living or working in the same premises as you. And something that I find really useful is to think about the volume of documentation that you really need to keep and the space that you have available. If we're talking about paper documentation, for example, and you've got a certain amount of storage space, then it will help you really focus your mind on what are the essential things that you need to keep in your record system. It will help you to work out whether perhaps you need to source additional space, or whether your part of your system needs to include a regular review so that you don't expand out of the space that you have available and make it unwieldy and impossible to work in that area. Likewise, keeping documentation on a computer It's a great way of storing things away and not taking up space in your working space. But at some point, your computer is going to become full. And don't forget, from a privacy point of view, if you're keeping personal data, you'll need also to keep a backup. So thinking really about the documents that you need to keep that are required, and thinking about how often you're going to review those and remove anything that's no longer essential is really quite helpful when you're thinking about setting up your system. So one theory that I think is so helpful in getting you to really focus on your the way you manage your documentation is the thinking about only touching your paperwork or maybe electronic records once. So as a document comes in, if we talk about paperwork, as you receive a document, maybe it's an invoice, you work on it straight away. So open it, work out what needs to do. If you need to pay it, or schedule the payment for a period later on. And then decide what to do with that document. So does it need to be filed? File it away in your system if it does. Does it need to be shredded? Or obviously invoices won't be shredded. But you only want to handle that document once. What you don't want to do is open it, think, okay, I'll deal with that later, stick it on a big pile, come back to it, check again, okay. You don't want to keep coming back to it. If you open all your mail and you don't have time to deal with it all in one go and take the actions, you could create an inbox called Action Inbox, and make sure that you review that either every day or every week, depending on timescales that will work for you, and then deal with that document that one time. So open it, pop it in there, and then deal with it one time, process it, and then file it or get rid of it, whatever's needed. And the same theory works for email as well. So when you open an email, respond to it straight away or take the action you need to straight away, and either save it if you need to or delete it and get it out of your inbox. So the third thing to think about when you're setting up your record system is how we're going to set it up now. So think about any storage that you need. Do you need folders with different sections? Are you going to use a LibreArch file? What is your filing system going to look like online? Your folders in your computer, or are you going to use a tool? So we need to think about, when you're setting up your filing system, what are you going to be thinking about when you want to access that information? So what's the logical thing for you, logical setup, if it works to alphabetize and have a section for each letter of the alphabet so that you can find your client by their name, then work it that way. If you are thinking about receipts and documents that you're going to work on a monthly basis, maybe you have a divider folder with 12 sections and you just pop everything in for the month and then you deal with it at the end of the month. So have a think about what's going to make it as easy as possible for you to access those records. Where are you going to be looking? How does your brain work in terms of what you'd be thinking about? The other thing to think about is when you're creating your files, try and make it as simple as possible. So if we go back to the receipts for tax records, you could have 12 little sections in a folder, and then every time you get a receipt or an invoice, once you've paid it, you pop it into the section for that month. That may work for you if you have a lot of detail, a lot of records, and lot to manage. But actually, if you get very few receipts, if you don't get that many invoices, then perhaps you're better off having it just 4 for each quarter, and you pop all the records into each quarter section and then you deal with it on a quarterly basis. So we don't need massively complex storage systems. Go with the simplest, most sort of general categorization that you can, and go with categories that are meaningful for you. So with setting up electronic files, I would suggest that you do it in a similar way that you would with a physical file. So have your high level folders might be tax records, and then within that you'll have maybe sub folders which might be by quarter. With your client files, again, maybe you've got client files and then you've got subfolders within that, either alphabetized, or if you have lots of clients, you may work it by location or by maybe product that they have a contract with you to produce, something like that. Think about the simplest way you can categorize, because you don't want to be hunting through lots of files. You can, just a little tip here, you can use the search bar on your computer to search folders, but you need to use the search term that's used in the file name or in the content. So it's very accurate, but it can be hit and miss sometimes, make it harder to find things. So one of the tools that I just wanted to talk about, and obviously there are others out there, but the tools that I've tried, Google Drive is really useful for creating folders, so that if you are out and about, you can take photos of any receipts and then save them into a folder on Google Drive, and that will enable you to keep track of your receipts. You might have a folder by month, or you might just have one folder that's receipts. But that's a great way of really, in the moment, being able to keep evidence. The other thing is that Google has Google Docs, so you could create a spreadsheet that is always available from your computers or from your mobile phone, where you can keep track of your income and your expenditure just in spreadsheet form, and I find that really useful. You may use things like QuickBooks to keep track of your income and expenditure, and of course you can upload your receipts to something like that, to that system. But if you don't use that, then I find Google's a great alternative, and as I mentioned, there are others available. The other thing to mention in terms of electronic tools is that if you are keeping passwords, a record of your passwords, if you have a lot of them, then something like LastPass is a great idea, because it enables you to store your passwords securely and keep track of everything on there. It also helps you generate new passwords, so you can be changing your passwords on a regular basis as well.